Hi there. Welcome to the Ohio Department of Youth Services podcast, The Future in Focus. I'm your host, Chavasukos. Thanks for joining us here for episode 11 of our journey through juvenile justice. When we say the term information technology, it can mean a lot of things. But what does IT look like and what all is done within its capacity in a government agency, especially now in an age of emerging technology or AI? To help us understand how DYS is helping advance safety and improve the lives of young people, family, and communities through our IT team, I have a trio of guests from our IT crowd. They include Chief Information Officer Brian Hernandez, IT Project Manager Kara Peterson, and IT Manager Shawn Davis. Everybody, welcome to the panel here.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. So before we get unweaving this technological web, let's find out more about our guests here. Brian, we'll start with you, starting from the top. Tell us about your background and what all you do as the CIO here.
A heavy background in private sector on the top end of my career. I worked with big companies like Comcast and Time Warner Inc. And I grasped a lot of different operational and infrastructure skills. And I will tell you that working in the private sector is slightly different than the public. However, though, I got the opportunity to work in public sector about 10 years ago. And from that point on, I took these skills from different regions that I worked in, and I was able to combine the best of both worlds. So it makes my career a little bit more unique. I was able to take innovation to a higher level over at DYS. I oversee the infrastructure team, the project management team, also the application team. It all starts with infrastructure, though. Without that, you can't have all the connections happen at once. Mm-hmm. But that's really my background, and I'm proud of what I can bring to public service at DYS. It's been quite the journey.
Yeah, Karen, we'll continue on with you.
I'm a homegrown Buckeye, born and raised right here in Columbus, Ohio. I got my bachelor's degree from The Ohio State University, and I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, focusing on change management and organizational change. I have my minor in criminal justice. While I was getting my master's degree, I started working at an adult rehabilitation center while I was getting my degree for counseling. And that's really what led me into public sector. While working at the rehabilitation center, I met some folks that worked on the adult corrections side, and so I started as a parole officer, really on the front lines, worked my way through the organization, working in various divisions on the adult side, and had an opportunity with an IT project that was going on to kind of be the subject matter expert and one of the end users, and that's really what piqued my interest on the IT side of things. And so I had an opportunity to transition into IT while I worked at DRC, which led to getting to know folks at DYS in the IT realm, and had that opportunity to really transition to a smaller agency where you get to know the various divisions and people across the organization much more intimately, because it's just a fraction of the size of the larger adult corrections. As far as project management goes, I think what I'm able to bring to the table is having worked on the business side and now on the IT side. As far as successful project management, one of the most important components is being able to communicate between the technical side and the business side.
Sure.
And so I think that's the strength that I bring to the position.
Yeah, it certainly helps when you have that whole experience to be able to bridge the gap if you're going that way. Shawn?
I grew up in Dayton, Kettering, Centerville area, came over to, went to The Ohio State University as well for college, got a degree in business administration, and then I never left. So did some time in the private sector, started contract work over at DAS about 10 years ago, and then came over to DYS. It'll be 3 years in April.
Brian? No, you kind of touched upon briefly the things that you oversee in that way. So kind of break down those elements in terms of the infrastructure and everything, how it just feeds off of one another and all the responsibilities that are within the DYS realm.
It really starts with infrastructure, right? You have to have the right pipeline. You have to have the bandwidth. You have to have, stability in your infrastructure. Wi-Fi, network capabilities, the speed of the network, the bandwidth of the network, all starts with infrastructure. We have servers, we have our endpoint solutions that we have to take care of. If we don't have any of the infrastructure, we can't do anything, right? So we start with infrastructure. We did a lot of rebuilding the last 3-4 years on our infrastructure, and I'm telling you, knock on wood, our network is much more stable now. We're able to bring in more technology, and then it set the stage to upgrade some of our applications. And now we oversee applications, right? They're very critical to the agency, some of them. The case management system that we have. There's a slew of like 90 different applications that we manage. Most of them fall under what Shawn's realm is right now. And then somebody's got to project manage all that. So that's why it's so critical to have a project manager that takes care of all all of this side of it, making sure that we're meeting deadlines, critical to the state enterprise, critical to our own agency as a whole. And then we have the other side is that we have security, which we just spun up a much larger security presence. And it's taken on a whole new role of how we have to prep ourselves to be secure, making sure we're working with good vendors that have our best interests in mind. So really right now is infrastructure, applications, project, right, security, and then innovation, which is really our AI department that's starting to take off now.
Sure. Karen, we'll kind of just get to delve deeper. So you obviously understand the front and the back end probably as well as anybody within the IT department right there. So when Brian's talking about all these large scale things that we're doing on the front end, for the frontline workers in that way, what kind of things is IT playing an influence in? I know we mentioned case management as a big thing right there. What are some of the other things that people that might not necessarily understand how we operate, how the technical stuff sets up the people on the front end?
So we have a total of 21 positions in the division of IT. We've got 20 filled positions and 1 vacancy that we're working to fill. And we really work in 4 main areas under IT. So we have security, service delivery, application development, and project management. And really our IT professionals are the silent engine that allows the agency to focus on its primary goal of habilitating youth and enhancing public safety. Our security professionals, they're the guardians of trust. They are really building out that secure foundation and support to make sure that the youth can engage in education and treatment. And our security team doesn't just block threats. They protect the integrity of a youth's progress and the privacy they need to move forward in their journey with the agency. Youth at DYS, they often have histories of trauma, and if their sensitive mental health or judicial records were ever compromised, then that trust would be broken. Our security folks are really ensuring only the staff with a need to know sees the youth's history and progress. They're securing those sensitive records, ensuring that the youth's past doesn't unfairly limit their future. So similar to parents and guardians at home, our security professionals are protecting youth from external digital threats, while also ensuring there's appropriate guardrails in place to prevent them from accessing harmful material. Our infrastructure specialists, they're doing a lot more than just worrying about servers. They're providing the opportunity for our youth to achieve, whether it's a high-speed access for the Buckeye United School District or managing and maintaining vocational training equipment. Our specialists build the digital foundation that keeps youth connected to the resources and the people that they need to be successful. Without a stable network, the Buckeye United School District wouldn't be able to deliver their online curriculum, conduct state testing or GED testing. The classroom is an important component for the youth with us, and managing the devices that allow the youth to earn their high school diplomas, skilled trade certifications. That's really the focus and the emphasis for our infrastructure team. Our software developers, they're the designers of progress. Our developers are focused on transforming lives through better tools. We build the applications that allow our frontline staff to spend less time on paperwork and more time on mentorship. By streamlining how we're tracking milestones, we make the path to habilitation clearer and more attainable for every youth in our care. What we're trying to provide is a holistic view of the youth's journey, making it easier for the staff to see what's working and where a youth needs more support. They're creating intuitive dashboards for case managers so they can track milestones like graduation and behavioral goals at a glance. They're developing mobile tools that help our juvenile parole staff to assist youth in finding housing, transportation, and jobs as they transition to the community and eventually leave our care. And the last group that we have is our database administrators. They're the keepers of the evidence. Data at DYS isn't just about compliance, it's really a map of the young person's growth. Our DBAs ensure that every milestone, every graduation, every grade earned, every program completed is recorded accurately and securely. We provide the evidence that shows that our habilitative efforts are working and that youth are truly gaining the tools that they need toward a successful future to reach that vision of a safer Ohio. We are learning which programs work to reduce recidivism, and the DBAs are really managing that memory of the agency that proves what works, organizing the data so that the agency can spot early warning signs and intervene before a youth's behavioral interventions may be needed, and really ensuring that judges and the release authority members look at the youth's file and that 100% of the information in the file is accurate, ensuring just and fair outcomes.
The thing I loved that you put a spin on there in the end was the fact that while we document things to have for referential purposes, as you alluded to with the idea of using it as a means to intervene when needed, understanding trends, understanding how things may play out a certain way, that way we can not only prevent situations in a certain context, but maybe larger scale understanding how these things move more holistically in that way. Shawn, Kara touched on a lot of places and a lot of spaces. Transitioning to you in that sense, DYS has their 3 main facilities, but it has kind of operations, whether it's parole and other things throughout the state as well. So how does DYS manage and maintain all of this, even though we're based here in Columbus?
When it comes to describing to somebody from the outside, like what is IT for DYS? It's like, you think of all this as these are mini cities. You're providing services for a correctional facility, obviously security services, but then, your doctor's office, your school district, and maintaining all of those systems, understanding how they all relate to each other, making them available is a job in and of itself. And then you have the physical traveling part, which our network operations team takes care of to get the equipment physically out to the facilities across our parole division to, all stretches of the state. It is quite a challenge. As we get better at delivering, keeping the systems up is obviously a huge deal for us. I think we've made great strides in making things more available more often. That to us is also a safety issue of making sure that people can do their jobs when they need to do it, and then focusing on reducing that downtime is a huge part of our day-to-day operations.
One thing that I learned here that I didn't really understand is the complexity of DYS. That we are the parent.
Yeah.
So you have to abide by a whole set of rules that are much different than the regular correctional.
Of course, yeah.
That's why education, they have their own high schools, right? Individual ones. Medical. I mean, Shawn's team has to make sure that the medical, application is up and running, right? Because they have to have nurses, doctors ready to go on this stuff. We got a call, just last Friday night on something. That's where I come from, is that being a parent of all these kids, right? And then the complexities they bring with them. That is really a hard job. So our job is really to make it easier for those people that are doing their jobs in those facilities.
Yeah, especially now with more and more of a reliance and dependence on technology to make our lives more seamless and not have to do as much repetitive work. I guess certainly on the administrative side of things, it certainly goes a long way in that sense. All right, Kara, given your background, not only having within DYS on both ends, but especially, you mentioned your time with DRC in that way will kind of lead us into that next one. So DYS is just one part of many within the governor's branch at the, at the statewide level. Within many organizations, businesses, a lot of times there's very self-governed, self-insulated in that way, so they just run things accordingly. But DYS, because we obviously work with other factions of the state, mainly the Department of Administrative Services, we cohabitate and we collaborate. So how does that all work?
I think one of the ways I like to think of it is like building a house. DAS provides the foundation, the plumbing, the electricity, those essential enterprise services that are necessary, like the statewide network, HR systems, procurement. Because DAS handles those massive utilities, then DYS doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. We can focus our energy on the architecture and the specialized tools like our educational platforms and case management systems that have been mentioned, really directly supporting the youth's pathway to transformation. And there's strength in numbers. Working under the governor's umbrella with DAS gives us the benefit of statewide security protocols, bulk purchasing power that a single agency can't achieve alone. This partnership, it really ensures that we're fiscally responsible to the taxpayers while maintaining a level of cybersecurity that protects the sensitive data of the families that we serve. There's a mission-first collaboration. The collaboration really works because it's a two-way street. DAS sets the enterprise standards, and DAS brings the mission context. And we cohabitate by making sure that the statewide IT policies are implemented really through the lens of how does this equip our youth toward making progress. We're not just following rules, we're really tailoring statewide strengths to meet our habilitative goals. People often see central governance as a constraint, but at DYS we see it as a force multiplier. By cohabitating and collaborating with DAS on our core infrastructure, our team gets freed up to stop worrying about the plumbing in the house and start focusing on the possibilities, building the digital tools that help our youth realize their full potential.
Glad you mentioned the housing aspect of it. Kind of reminds me the way you describe it. It's like one of those communities, like an HOA, if you will, where everybody kind of like on the outside has that same kind of structure and guidelines, but then when needed for individual agencies, the interior is where you customize it and kind of build it to whatever house specs you might need to fit your needs in that way. A couple years ago when I started here at DYS, when you think government agencies, you think very just rigid bureaucracy, obviously of your policies and your things you follow along that line. But especially in the realm you guys work in with information technology, you're always trying to push the limits just to make life more full in that way with what we're doing and how we're trying to maximize things. The thing that caught my attention in terms of you guys pushing those limits was this partnership we have with Google. And when I first started, you guys were at that point just announcing this very massive kind of analysis of the workflows at the agency. So what was that? What was the purpose of it? And what were the results?
I was also fresh to DYS at the same time too. So the first thing I got out of the kind of the mapping of those workflows is just the complexity of our environment. And it really helps kind of give you a holistic picture of all the moving parts that need to be documented, accounted for, and really tracked in ways that we can optimize information technology to make that easier for our staff and our youth to get the services that we critically provide. While we didn't get to rebuild a full case management system, the benefits that we've seen from just mapping that out, identifying pain points, coming up with optimization strategies that we can implement right now, we're starting to roll that out to DYS. Over the past few months, we've started using some of those Google AI tools for production data, summarization of, unstructured data, getting it in and really trying to reduce that administrative overhead, burdening our employees and try and find ways to streamline it. I think as we go forward, we're going to see more and more of those opportunities that we will continue to pursue and take advantage of as we move forward through 2026.
One of the things that stood out from that presentation, Brian, was you talking about the idea of, okay, well, what else is the point of this, the pain points, the kind of the efficiencies. You brought up the number that if we manage to kind of work these things accordingly, we could potentially save 140,000 man hours, and we can invest that accordingly back into the youth, which is obviously where the most important, greatest value of our time to try and get them in that process of change and habilitation in that way. Shawn mentioned the idea of artificial intelligence. We've started evolving that relationship more and more with Google in that way. How is the agency harnessing AI to utilize its work and make it more beneficial for all?
Going back to the exercise we did, that was the first step. We have 54 workflows on our 6th floor, right, that identify these complexities. And then we started identifying AI opportunities, about 30 or 40 of them inside these workflows. When we pivoted from the case management system, we then said, okay, let's partner with Google. Google said that they would work with us on how can we hit those pain points on the outside, right? So we used the Google platform, GCP, right, enterprise, to be able to actually use the Google tools and make these solutions happen outside of our case management system. So as of today, our case management system, right, talks to the Google Cloud, right? That data can be shared, and then now we can actually make these real-time solutions in-house, no less. So even though we're not going to rebuild all the workflows, we're going to build workflows that have optimization. They're going to bring down administration costs. We have, I think, 5 in the queue right now. Our goals are tied to AI and innovation. Google has helped us get started, but we actually have a team now that's building solutions, and one of them is the AI bot. And I'm going to tell you, that has been one of the most amazing things I've seen. I'm actually building my own bot back at the office just to see how much work it takes to do it, because it's actually doing coding through Gemini, but you're not actually coding. You're telling it what you want, how you can adjust it. And I would just say is that this is just keeps evolving, because when we get stuck, Google comes probably, every other week. And they say, okay, what do you need help in? And they will give us a nudge, or we can call them. But they've been with us the whole way. We couldn't have done this by ourselves, but the idea is that we become more autonomous. Now, the other step of that is, and they've came up to us about partnering, is we have now gotten the green light that because we have results now, real results in production, I can go out now to the business areas and have these workshops monthly. And we're going to have AI workshops and sit down and talk to the business areas again from the time that we mapped them out, but then really learn. Let them design what they want. And then we go back to the laboratory, we build the solution, they test it, and then we can measure the ROI on it. This is a very exciting time to be here. Because of how complex this environment is, we can make gains. If we can save time in parole, if we can save time with case management, if we can save time in other areas, that's more hours that goes toward the youth. Instead of being drowned with policy, which is all because we are the parent. Again, we have to follow so many protocols. So if we can make it easier for them, That's the goal. And right now, it works. We have a good team working on it every day, but we're partnering with our business areas. We're not just going to make something and say, hey, here it is, see if you like it or not. Sure. No, we're going to build it based on what they say to us.
Yeah, the examples I know you've provided, and having sat in on a couple of these meetings in the past, was I know we unveiled the policy bot, for instance. You know, you mentioned policies, all these protocols we have to follow. Well, a lot of times when we have new staff, it's a lot of information to try and retain and whatnot. So when they have like a question and they have a scenario in mind they need to get some guidance on, all they do is just hit in some keywords and they have the specific thing they're trying to get clearance on, as opposed to reading through this massive, dossier basically of information in that way. And the other thing that you pointed out was the parole officers. So they're obviously having to do a lot of caseloads and whatnot. They're on the go. They don't necessarily have all the equipment, the materials they need with them, the ability to basically transcribe, talk into your phone, and dictate what's going on right here. That way you don't have to, if you don't have time for it in that second, go back hours later and try to remember, okay, what were all the details, what were the specifics right here? Just gets you in the spot, keeps you moving, as you said, keeps things more streamlined and more efficient and more beneficial for the kids in that way. So, future that fits in 2026 is the mantra for this year. How is IT living to those standards, trying to push the boundaries here in the year and beyond? Shawn, we'll kind of work our way back around the horn here.
From an application development side, it's really what our focus is going to be on is optimizing those employee experiences as you interface with technology. Finding ways to make things safer by reducing the time in front of the screen, reducing the time away from youth. Those are going to be our top priority projects. And then, data-driven insights is, the other big thing that we're going to be focusing on. Using these technologies that are available to go out, summarize, gain insights into what's happening, to make decisions as an agency as a whole, to provide a safer, more productive, a better experience for our youth and staff at the agency.
Yeah. Brian's mentioned before is just these heat maps, if you will, where you see more activity, more emphasis, so you have a clear idea of what really you need to prioritize and how to make those things a little more improved in that way. Carol?
Our strategy is moving away from being reactive to proactive. Yeah. We're moving away from a model of a support desk to being a strategic partner. Mm-hmm. When it comes to AI, we are looking to deploy AI in a way that it's an assistant, not a replacement. Mm-hmm. And as you mentioned, assist employees in navigating the vast amounts of data so that they can make the most informed decision possible and as efficient as possible. Our strategy is really to make the technology seamless. Mm-hmm. So we want the technology to be so good that the staff don't even realize that it's there and that they're using it. It's always there when they need it. They don't notice that it's there to assist them and kind of help them move forward in all the ways that Brian and Shawn have mentioned today.
Yeah. Technology, for a lot of people who aren't familiar with it, the biggest impediment a lot of time is it's just understanding and feeling this pressure, this burden by it. But as you mentioned, if it's just a part of your workflow and just kind of like your natural, organic day-to-day, obviously it makes life a lot easier for everyone. Brian, we'll close it out with you.
I'm excited about the heat map because, when you have roll call, you can look up there, you can find out where the hot spots are. Could be medication, could be behavioral, could be a facility issue. You can be proactive. Think about that for a moment. Yeah. Get in front of something before it becomes an issue. Yeah, yeah. The other thing that we are testing right now, and we're going to be testing in the next couple of weeks, is that if you come in off shift, I've been off for 3 days, what's happened? Mm-hmm. So instead of having a hallway conversation and say, well, Joe or Bill over here were causing trouble or whatever, you can get real stats to find out what happened before you go into that area. We're also looking to work with Release Authority and other divisions where if a youth is coming to us, we can find out what their history is by just having the AI tell us, what are we walking into? What should we have prepared for that youth before they get in there? That is really powerful. Some of it's almost science fiction, like a computer comes up and it gives you all the stats of what you need to know on how to run the ship. That's what fits for 26. And we are positioned to do just that. And that's what I'm proud of right now, is that we can sit here and say, yeah, we're doing it and we're going to keep pushing toward that.
One of the benefits of me sitting in this chair is being able to sit with a lot of people that I don't normally sit with for an extended period, and certainly learn a lot more about the agency, and hopefully that's coming through and how we're presenting this to you all out on the camera. And out in your ears as well. Shawn, Kara, Brian, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Coming up on our next episode, people across DYS make decisions on a daily basis that have short and long-term effects. Some of the most significant determinations come from our Release Authority. We'll hear from Release Authority Chair Beth Myers and others about what all goes into release and discharge decisions when considering the best interests of youths, victims, and the public. Be sure to subscribe to the Future in Focus podcast and let others know about it too. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or watch our video recording on the Ohio DYS YouTube channel. Thanks for listening and watching. We look forward to having you with us for our journey through juvenile justice here at DYS.